Como você está, Luana?
Tudo bem. Vamos começar? Aqui já
Vamos
apareceu.
começar? Então esse reunião não tem ninguém. Só você e eu, né? Nós dois.
Yes. Najara, are you seeing us on YouTube?
Uhum. Já
Uh,
começou?
all right. Yes, we're about to start.
Ok.
Okay, so Dajahao, good morning China and good evening Brazil. It is a pleasure to welcome you to this lecture titled Energy Security and Global South Cooperation Under Climate Change, an analysis of Brazil and China, part of the International Seminar on Environmental Studies, CIAMB 2025. My name is Lana Bramorsky. I'm a master's student in sociology at Unicamp and a member of Center for Chinese Studies, CAS Unicamp. Today we have the honor of welcoming Zhou Lin, PhD candidate in Environment and Society at Unicamp, Master in International Relations from the University of Chinese Academy of Social Sciences, and researcher at SECLA, Comunidad de Estudios Chinos y Latinoamericanos. Her research focuses on China-Brazil relations, global climate governance, and Brazilian environmental diplomacy, topics of great importance in this time of climate emergency and reconfiguration of international relations in the Global South. We are truly delighted to have her here to share her insights on energy security, international cooperation, and sustainability. I wish everyone an inspiring and thought-provoking lecture. Thank you very much. The word is yours, Jolene.
Thank you, Luana. 大家好. Hello, everyone. My name is Zhou Lin, and I'm PhD candidate here in Unicamp, State University of Campinas. And today my topic is energy narrative on the climate emergency, China Brazil's cooperation from global south perspectives. And now I will start my lecture. First, I want to introduce some of the international backgrounds of the backgrounds that will totally focus on the U.S. and China tensions escalate. And as we see from my presentation, and the United States gets a very high threat from China, and from the April of the 2025, the U.S. announces 40% of the transshipment tariffs on Chinese goods, and from July of 2025, the Washington expands semiconductor export ban to China also, and in October of 2025, and China also tightens real earth export controls, and China, U.S. They also signed the critical mineral deals, and some of these conflicts between United States and China has been very tentative. It's like a very big or very obvious threats between China. So the China and the U.S. relationships is shifting from a tactical trade disputes to a very strategic long-term competition, shaping the future of the global governance. So because of the background of the U.S. and China, tensions escalate, and we especially in the in the climate crisis. I want to introduce some of the the competition between the topic of climate crisis. And here I want to introduce the climate crisis is shaping the boundaries of competition in the world. And I want to tell you that the climate crisis is no longer just an environmental issue. It has also become a very new arena of geopolitical and economic competition. And why I say that? Because the emerging dimensions of global competition are always involved in the climate governance. And who leads in green energy technologies, who sets global emission reduction standards, and who gains moral and discursive power in climate governance between China and the United States is also very important. And then I want to tell you some of the my main theories of this presentation is strategic narratives. And I will tell you strategic narratives as a tool of competition. And I would introduce three of the points. And the first, the new boundaries of competition, who shapes rules, standards, and perceptions and strategic advantages. And the key side of strategic narratives is like emerging competitions points requires a very strategic narratives to shape cognition and legitimacy. And thirdly, I want to tell that establishing the international co-housing is also very important. And we're using strategic narratives to shaping an alternative energy narrative from the global source. So strategic narratives is very important. And I will tell you, my because of the background of the world, and I will introduce my core research problem. And my core research problem is like amid the ongoing U.S. and China geopolitical competition, and this study examines China and Brazil's cooperative strategic narratives on energy security. And firstly, I will introduce the theoretical framework. It's like a narrative theory, and I will and then I will tell the people who why I use this theory and how the narrative theory becomes to involved in strategic theories and involved in some of the policies in the international arena. And at first, narratives is like a very it's a theory from literature, and in the initially, the narratives are very closely linked to the act of storytelling, because whenever some people tell us something, is a narrative exists, because storytelling is very obvious characteristic of narrative theory. Yes, the action way of organizing meaning, narratives help human beings to understand the world, to communicate and interact with people, and to construct identity. And but narrative between with the development of the society, and narrative are also be used in the social interaction. Here I focus on the two authors. The first is Evan Goffman, and he thinks that the narrative theory can also be viewed social interaction as a performance, and can also lay the foundation for starting the link between the narrative and the identity. And MacDam's view also shows that the importance of the narrative theory, and he thinks that the individuals construct self-identity through personal stories and collective level, and similar narrative process exists in groups and societies. And how this can be involved in the strategic narratives. And I point just use the three parts of the contents to explain the strategic narratives. And firstly, I want to introduce the representative scholars. And the strategic narrative can be constructed by McMahon, Olin, and Rusley in 2013. And this context can be called also the MOR theory. And the main conception of the strategic narratives is like a purposeful story told by states or actors to shape perceptions, legitimize policies, and influence the international orders. And the key idea of the MOR theory is like narratives are not just stories; they are tools of power in global politics. It's a form of communicative power. And here I just put three levels of strategic narratives. Then first level is system narrative, and second is identity narrative, and third is issue narrative. Why I use these three parts? Because it's a very structural theory constructed by these three levels, and from these three levels, and we can know some of the real actions from or real meaning from the country's actions. Why? And we can explain why they choose this idea and choose this storytelling to the world, to the international arena, to express some of the meanings or some of the ideas to the other countries, to the worldwide person, to get some of the purpose. And firstly, I will explain the system narrative. System narrative defines what the international order is and should be. The in brief is like what is the international order, and just from the system narrative, we can shape the rules, norms, and the legitimacy from of the global governance. And the second is identity narrative. Identity narrative defines who we are and how we relate to others. And because of the identity narratives, and we can provide the moral and cultural foundation for actions. And thirdly is issue narrative. Issue narrative is very easy to understand. It's like we use different issues, we use different topics to express our meanings, to explain the meaning and the legitimacy of specific actions of all policies. And we can use issue narrative to translate broad visions into practical cooperation and international practice. And then I will introduce two core types or two main types of strategic narratives. And the first is competitive narratives, and second is cooperative narratives. And competitive narratives, from the name, we can get that the competitive narratives is very around the competition. And the cooperative narratives is also very obvious. The main topic is around cooperation. So I just use this format to compare the different characteristics about the competitive narratives and the cooperative narratives. And I put some of the very important part here. The competitive narratives is like the country, just like United States, they created one rival of some of the rivals of their country, and they think that the core logic of the world is like a zero-sum game, because it's like if China or other global South countries grew up, and United States will be threatened by your growth. So it's a very typical competitive narrative, and the core logic of competitive narrative is like there is some game, conflict, and confrontation. And what view is like they differentiated us and them, we and them. The primary goal is like weaken the opponent. They think that the people people have or the country have rivals, have opponents, and their meaning is the actions of the meaning is to weakening the opponent, to mobilize for confrontation and justify one's own actions. The emotional tone is like fear, anger, vigilance, and superiority. And typical vocabulary that we can see from the global news is like threat, challenge, accusation, hegemony, evil, and defense. And in contrast, it's like a cooperative narrative. The cooperative narrative is more harmonious than the competitive narratives, and some of the logics of these actions are also very obvious from the name, because the core logic is like a positive sum game, shared futures, and the worldview of the cooperative logic is like we are the party, we are the one part, a complete part. We don't have the rival, the person that want to have cooperative actions with us, and we are the complete part, and we have the actions for the countries growing up together to have cooperation in a very harmonious way. And the primary goal is like a build trust, foster cooperation, and shape a very leadership image. And emotional tone is totally different from the competitive narratives. It's like a hope, trust, responsibility, and belonging. And typical vocabulary of cooperative narratives is also partnership, it's also sharing benefit, and win-win logic in community development to sustainability, like these meanings. So, firstly, I will introduce the very typical competitive narratives like Occidental-centric narrative, and from the Occidental-centric narrative, and their meaning, their thinking is like is very obvious. They are centered on Western experiences, values, and historical perspectives, and they reinforces Western authority and discursive power, and frames Western modernity as a very universal progress. And Western-centric thinking in climate governance standards is also very obvious. They just follow the Occidental thinking. And here I just put some of the main thinking of the Western-centric thinking in global in the climate change and the climate crisis. And first is like historical responsibility. And the Western-centric thinking downplays the historical emissions plus common but differentiated responsibilities. And government's best way in this context, they promote a very single technical pathway like a renewable carbon markets as universal standards, and about discourse and standards, and they monopolizes setting concepts, accounting standards, and proper framing is also like isolating climate issues, prioritizes it over all development needs. And these are the Western thinking about climate change. And then I will introduce the China-Brazil's cooperative strategic narratives as a very representative narratives below the global south. And China-Brazil's cooperation based on the these three thinkings. First is the mutual benefits. And the second is like a shared responsibility, and third is like a comprehensive strategic partnership. So based on the systematic narratives, and I want to explain some of the logics about the China and Brazil's cooperation or cooperative framing between the global south. And first here, I just put the cooperative frame, the global south dimensions. I just put the aspects like identity, cooperation logics, and development vision. And the key narratives like identities like China and Brazil as the members of the global south. And because we are the members of Global South, and China, Brazil position ourselves as autonomous actors within the Global South, showcasing alternative discourses and governance models. And about the cooperation logics, like China, Brazil is a new model of South-South cooperation. And this explanation based on the equality, reciprocity, and mutual development, contrasting with the hierarchical aid recipient model of the global north. And the development version of China Brazil is like balancing energy security and sustainability. And both of the China-Brazil emphasizes the right to development while promoting a fair and inclusive energy transition. This is the first arena is like a global South dimension, and then I will introduce the BRICS and how China and Brazil use cooperation between the organizations, the international organizations, and the representative international organization between the China and Brazil is BRICS, and BRICS as a very important member in the BRICS, and China Brazil shaping a very fair global energy order. And the BRICS and here has also some of the representative thinkings are very advanced thinkings about the BRICS. First is like energy security, energy transition. And in the energy security and energy transition, and BRICS also always expressing the idea that we need to advocate for a very balance between energy accessibility and a gradual shift toward low carbon systems and the legitimacy of the right to development. And we also emphasizing that developing countries has a right to choose their own energy pathways based on the national circumstance. And in the institution, we point of view is like a source cooperation, and into the BRICS organization, and we use new development bank to get more green financials and get some of the support of technology, and to use of some of the tools to get the technology exchange among global South nations. And then I will introduce the BASIC. BASIC is also a very typical organization to talk or to communicate or to interact into the global governance. The BASIC is a collective voice in climate governance, and in the BASIC and China, Brazil jointly depending the principle of common but differentiated responsibilities. They also emphasize that common but differentiated responsibilities in climate governance is also very important. They're positioning themselves as a very responsible emerging power within the global South, and framing cooperation as a very collaborative leadership rather than a confrontation in global climate politics. And not only the China and the Brazil cooperation, not only in the arena of the international stage, but between the two countries, they also have very big or very amount of the interactions between the two countries, and just because. So I just got some of the ideas about bilateral relations level here, and the key concept is like mutual respect and win-win cooperation, and two countries emphasize equality and reciprocity between the China and Brazil, and they move away from traditional center periphery defense models, and then the pragmatic cooperation of ideological differences is also very important to emphasize. We just highlights the practical cooperation in joint development as a core identity and identity framing. We position China and Brazil as partners with shared destiny in sustainable development, and strengthens global South partnership discourses at the international level. And then I want to introduce some of the project, the contracted of project implementation dimension. The functions of this is based on the function of issue narrative, And I will introduce the functions of each narrative. It's like a build imagery of responsibility and leadership in global climate governance. And second is like reflect the autonomous innovation of global souls. And thirdly, is like turn social cooperation from rhetoric into a tangible energy and technology outcomes. And lastly, is like a mark shift from trade cooperation to structure synergy in development. And here are some of the very famous Chinese companies, how they invested some of the very detailed projects here in Brazil. And first is Goldwind in Brazil. And the company of Goldwind is a very big company in China. And the main trade or main projects here is like a wind project. And they're called their location is like Camaçari in Bahia in Brazil, and here this location is situated in the northeast northeast of Brazil, because in this area the resources of wind is very big and very useful for Chinese companies to utilize. And the strategic roles of Goldwind's like is Goldwind's first office's manufacturing base. A cornerstone of this global expansion strategy. And they also have this big project also have very big local impact. It's like from the beginning of this project, they already have created more than 100 direct or 1,000 of indirect jobs around the states, around the country, empowering the local economy and the community. And then I will introduce the CTG Group. CTG Group is the main country that is responsible for the hydropower projects in Brazil. And here I just put some of the very typical projects here. These three big projects here in Brazil. And the project background is like how the CTG choose these three locations to create their projects to use the hydropower resources here in Brazil. And last is CNG. It's also a very big company in sustainable energy. But this company is also responsible for the solar complex project, and their company is mainly responsible for the solar projects, and they have a very successful progress here in Brazil to develop more projects about solar resources here, to how to transfer the solar resources to the electricity and to provide more resources or to more necessary resources for the local people. And CPFL is also controlled by a Chinese company, and they in these 2 years they are focused on the pilot green hydrogen plant. This hydrogen plant now is very new and very advanced technology here in Brazil. Just like not only in Chinese government. I think that this hydrogen is very important, as I think that the Brazilian government, they are also very put the hydrogen resources as a very high level, and they are every year this just in the some of the listation of the annual. And the government put a lot of money per year to advocate the different companies to develop the hydrogen plant, hydrogen sources to the whole country. So I also put here the CPFL, the cooperation with CPFL and Mizu Cimentos to develop the pilot green hydrogen plant. I just put these four cases as a issue narratives, like a wind project, hydropower project, and solar complex project, and the hydrogen project, to show that the cooperation between the different issues of the cooperation between China and Brazil are very important, and are also very variable and very we can develop more profoundly in the future about these areas. And then I will introduce why we use the narrative strategic, and the objective of strategic narrative is like in two parts. The first part is shaping risk perceptions, and the second part is seeking solutions. The first part is building a very shared risk perception. I just explained in three areas. The first is geopolitical risk, joint concern over the politicization and the weaponization of global energy markets by hegemonic powers. And second is the development and transition risks, and the recognition that the lacking control of the core technologies may push global south countries into the new green divide. And the climate risk also have some of the shared risk perception of climate risk. It's an acknowledgement of climate change as a very shared existential and development threat from both China and Brazil. So we know that we have the perception of the shared risk. So how to seek and practicing the solutions is also very important for us. So I just put here the achieving synergies between energy autonomy and energy transformation through structural South-South cooperation. And I just put some of the practicing solutions here. The first is like technology sharing solutions, because we know that China has a very advantage of the technology, but Brazil also have advantages of resources here. So I put here that China can provide technologies, equipment, and financing to Brazil to have the cooperation, and Brazil can contribute resources, markets, and application scenarios to confront the potential risks between the two countries. And second is like a market synergy and standard alignment. The jointly explore China and Brazil jointly explore the third-party markets to explain renewable energy influence. Just for example, we can explore the third-party markets in all the Latin American countries and establish the regional green energy standard and certification systems to facilitate cross-border cooperation. And thirdly, I put here the practice solutions like policy coordination and global governance. And from the international arena, from the global governance perspective, and China and Brazil should advocate jointly in international forums for developed nations to fulfill the climate finance and technology transfer commitments. And we two countries need to promote the establishment of fair global carbon market rules. And here I put the last part, like redefining the energy order, China-Brazil cooperation narratives, and and some of the most important transformation from the Occidental narrative to South-South cooperation narrative. Here in Brazil and China, cooperation is very obvious, and put three transformations here. And the first is from resource logic to discourse logic. That is like that, not only the cooperation not only based on the resource logic, the discourse logic, to get the autonomy, to get the legitimacy of the or some of the direct right to speak in the global governance, global climate governance is also very important. And secondly, is like from market cooperation to share the risk responsibilities. We cannot only just to have cooperation based on the economic benefits, but the share the risk responsibilities is also very important. And the last one is from passive participation to very active native shapers. And in the global organizations, we cannot only just accept it passively the Occidental ideas, and we need to take our rights to share, to do the storytelling strategies to be nature shapers. Thanks. My speaks is to here. If you have some questions, you can discuss with us.
All right, let me just check here. I think we haven't received any questions, but thank you, Zhou Lin. It was an amazing and inspiring presentation. So good night, everyone. Good morning, China. Bye bye.
Bye bye.